So now to give some real life stories, we actually have our first panel, Obstacles and Opportunities, Perspectives from Black and Brown Innovators, moderated by Qyana Stewart.
Thank you, Jennifer. As Jennifer mentioned, I am Qyana Stewart, and I have the honor and pleasure of serving as the moderator for today's panel, Obstacles and Opportunities, Perspectives from Black and Brown Innovators. This conversation is a direct result of the research conducted by a research team, which Dr. Warner just mentioned. As he also mentioned, noted in the earlier research findings that he and I collectively interviewed over 100 Black and Brown founders and several entrepreneur support organizations to bring these insights to you today. As a PhD student at Howard University researching tech transfer and commercialization barriers that exist for historically Black colleges and universities, and as a tech entrepreneur and program director of an entrepreneur support organization, I am thrilled to serve in this capacity. We want this to be an engaging opportunity to listen and learn not only from the panelists, but also from you, the audience participants. We will periodically check for questions to integrate into the discussion, so please be sure to post your questions in the chat. Before we get started, we'd like to, of course, welcome our panelists to introduce themselves. And so let's begin with Dr. April Lovelady. April, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Is my volume okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm April Lovelady, and by training, I am a control systems engineer. I graduated from Texas A&M University with my PhD in 2012. And since that time, I've worked for the federal government, I've worked for private industry, but ultimately I landed on an academic position because it allowed me to be entrepreneurial. I've been able to form two medical device companies around technology that was based on my research, both of which have received SBIRs, one from the NSF and one from the NIH. And I'm a proud graduate of the NSF I-Corps program. And so I'm just happy to be a part of this panel today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we'd like to ask Dr. Katrina Polk if you would come off mute and introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Katrina Polk, and I'm the CEO of Dynamic Solutions for the Aging, where we create age-friendly solutions based on community-based participatory research. So we're an R&D firm that looks at housing, health technology, age-friendly community development, as well as policy infrastructure around the age-friendly community. I'm a geriatrician by trade, and I've been in community development for over 30 years. And what else can I say? I'm based in Washington, D.C. in Ward 8. I'm a certified businesswoman owned, and I love working with seniors, so.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, next we'll go to Weston Waldo. Mr. Waldo, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Weston Waldo. I'm at the University of Arkansas right now. One of the big things I'll share, so kind of had wear a couple of different hats into this. Is I started my career off in venture capital and private equity, and then got the bug to start something. So ended up working with a researcher that had won an NSF Career Award. Ups and downs and stuff all around that, and we ended up going through the NSF I-Corps program, which then led to a startup company and winning our seed funding through the NSF SCTR program around that. Since then, had the opportunity to now work at a university and to help facilitate some of these activities on the other side from an ESO organization. And so I'm really excited to be here and to be a part of this panel. So thank you.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Paulo Garcia. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Thank you very much, Qyana and SBA, for the invitation. I am Paulo Garcia, CEO and co-founder of Kyotopen, an MIT spinout in cell and gene therapy. My degree is in biomedical engineering from Virginia Tech. That's where I first got exposed to the power of customer discovery through NSF I-Corps and subsequent SBIR funding. At that point, we were developing a medical device to treat solid tumors in the brain. I have since transitioned to Massachusetts, in which I did a postdoc and then a research scientist at MIT in the Department of Mechanical Engineering in Dr. Cullen Buie's lab and we spun out the company from his lab. That's where I did my second NSF I-Corps and subsequent funding through SBIR, both from NSF and NIH. Looking forward to the panel.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for your insights and, of course, for engaging us in today's discussion. So a core component of this research project involved connecting with each of you to investigate the challenges and opportunities you encountered during the preparation and application processes for the SBIR. Dr. Garcia, as someone who has extensive experience with applying for and winning SBIR awards, how important are entrepreneur support organizations, including those within university ecosystems?
I have been blessed to be a part of two, institutions that have resources that have helped us in submitting our grants. Initially at Virginia Tech, my professor, my mentor there, had a career award, and so I had been exposed to a successful submission, and through his guidance, we were able to secure an SBIR post the NSF I-Corps. And currently, in my capacity as CEO of Kyotopen, we are actually in an incubator space in which we get exposure to additional resources and networks. And, part of what we have been able to leverage is trying to access those individuals that have been successful before, and just getting exposure to what it took to be able to achieve those results and be able to secure not only a phase 1 SBIR, but actively executing on a phase 2. Part of the journey really has been to engage those individuals and organizations that go beyond the SBIR program. And in Massachusetts, for example, there is the Mass Ventures program. They have a platform in which you can pitch for ideas. There is competitions, and this has provided additional opportunities to start thinking what is a compelling application and how you can position for best success. It's obviously not a guarantee, but we have been blessed to be able to access some of the funds, which is how the company got started and enable us to attract additional capital as we continue to develop the technology and pursue additional funding.
Thank you for that. And one of the things that I would like to elevate in your response is the access to individuals. And so when I think about access, I immediately think about mentors. And so I'm going to deviate from the questions just a little bit to again, elevate this concept. Weston, if you wouldn't mind sort of talking about, based on your origin story, I think you mentioned how you had a local Houston venture capitalist who sort of took you under his wing. If you could share with us your thoughts on how important it is for ESOs to provide mentoring resources, right, as part of their support offerings.
Yeah, it's extremely important. So growing up, basically, to be honest with you, and after high school, I thought my destination was a trade school and was prepared to be a plumber, of all things, really which is great. It's kind of a pathway to follow. But I had a really great friend that I had met in high school, where his dad, actually, that was the firm that had hired me for kind of the first introduction into that space. So prior to that, I think the starting point is like not even knowing the vocabulary of what is venture capital, what is even entrepreneurship, and what does that word even mean? And so these ESO organizations were extremely pivotal to like really even beginning to understand that lingo, like to raise a seed round. What does that mean? And then even the concept of when you're, now, like a phase 1 SBIR is $275,000. In our context, when we first won that funding, it was like, I've never seen above $1,000, like $5,000, $10,000, let alone that much money, coming in. What do I even do? So this is really, I guess what it really boils down to is, at the time, back in the day, it was really scary it was really, really scary. And these ESO organizations really helped to, I don't want to use the word normalize it, because it is a really big privilege, but it was something that kind of helped to say, hey, this is like way out of your comfort zone, but we're here to help you every step of the way. And so there were some really big key leaders that took initiative in my career, in my personal life, that had stepped in to say, hey, we're willing to help you. So anyway, so that was a big thing of kind of my personal background, is when, you know, my starting point, maybe even negative in a lot of cases, and the ESO organizations really helped to elevate me. So
yeah, and so one of the things that we pulled out, or that again was sort of front and center, were the challenges and sort of the disparities that exist for Black and Brown founders within ESOs. And so I'm going to transition to you, Dr. Polk. One of the things that Weston mentioned was sort of the scary nature of, you know, coming into this world as an entrepreneur, not knowing the lingo, not really understanding the landscape. One of the things that you mentioned was that, you know, as you were getting your footing as an entrepreneur, it was really challenging to not only connect with other Black entrepreneurs, but specifically that had a focus on supporting Black and Brown entrepreneurs in this new space and ecosystem. So can you share those insights with us about sort of that cultural lens and how important that is, not only in innovation, but also as, you know, Black and Brown founders are kind of really trying to understand what entrepreneurship is?
Wow. So after hearing the results that Dr. Warner shared with us today, it really made me start thinking in a different way to kind of express myself with that particular question, because I think the individuals that I had actually engaged around this process that were trying to help me, they didn't know how to help me really, right? Because it was a cultural barrier. Right. And that's when we get into the thick of things in terms of same access versus equitable access. So people think because I just have access, oh, you can go online and you can navigate this space, that I have this equal platform, but it's not, right? Because I don't know the lingo. I don't know the players. I don't have any of the, I think, the sufficient pieces for me to be successful. And I think through this particular time frame, which is really here within this past 3 years, I just think that it's imperative that we look at it through a cultural lens, right? Because we talk about growth opportunities. We're looking at a better ecosystem for entrepreneurs, especially in our communities. One thing that I found that I was leaning on DC, I'm from DC, I was leaning on DC Small Local Business Development Office, and they had no one that they could connect me with in terms of mentorship. Right. That went through the process that they had, you know, invited or encouraged or informed about this process. So I felt like there was no network for me to connect to. And it wasn't until I met you that I really started, expounding my communication and being able to find out what else is there. But also it gives the opportunity to address the gaps in the literature, right? If we want to talk about academics, let's talk about how we can address the gaps in terms of innovations around for that, in terms that could be solutions for people of color, but also talk about the population of innovators, right? So I think that there's a way now that as we're talking about it, and then we transition from, was it theory to practice? We now can be able to come up with some good solutions to move beyond those barriers, like myself, I'm always confronted with. So that's kind of my spill on what the process I went through. And it was very discouraging at times, so.
And I know that, you know, for many of us, right, it can be a very daunting process. It can be discouraging. And so I'd like to invite you, Dr. Lovelady, into the discussion as well. One of the things that you shared with us is along the lines of, you know, the discomfort and perhaps some of the barriers that exist, is your experiences around sort of negative perceptions, right? And so one of the things that was consistently elevated throughout our interviews were racism, bias, elitism, and negative perceptions, right? And how those constructs really do hamper and inhibit Black and Brown founders from being able to not only apply, but also have the confidence to apply, right? In many cases, these are PhD academics, but in many cases they're not. And so experiencing those adverse challenges is really limiting in the ability for you to see yourself as someone that is going to win an SBIR, and then of course use those funds to start your company, to Dr. Garcia's point. So can you share with us your thoughts on how negative perceptions directly impacted your SBIR application process?
Sure. I think that, so for the SBIR that we were awarded from the NIH, we applied for that 4 times before we actually won it. And so I think that negative perceptions absolutely influenced the fact that we were not awarded the SBIR the first 3 times. And the reason why I feel that way is because the 4th time that it was awarded, it was essentially the same proposal. We did add a little more data, but nothing substantial, because at the time, a lot of this we were paying for out of pocket, up until that point. So, we were doing studies here and there, so we did add some data. But what really happened was we partnered with a larger engineering consulting firm, and it was submitted on behalf of that larger firm. Right. So now it's really no longer a true small business, right? Submitting the proposal. You have this larger engineering firm that has a proven track record of SBIR, SBIR, SBIR. And as soon as their name gets added to the proposal, it was submitted. It was awarded. The other thing that we did was, in terms of the perception, is that I felt like, okay, we submitted the first time and it wasn't awarded. We addressed the comments, we resubmitted, it wasn't awarded, and then you submit. So now I think there's this perception of these people are just, submitting, just trying to get whatever it is that they can get, right? And that wasn't the case at all. Sorry, my light went off in here. That wasn't the case at all. It was that we were seriously trying to address the things that they said was wrong with our proposals. But again, it wasn't until we brought in, a larger company with this track record and submitted that we actually, the 3 prior proposals that we were not awarded were all phase 1 SBIRs. When we won a direct to phase 2 SBIR. And so I think those negative perceptions absolutely impact your ability to secure that funding.
I appreciate those insights, and I'm immediately thinking about the emotional toll that applying for an SBIR, as extensive as the application process is, and the amount of resources, time and otherwise, that you put into that. And this question is for the panel at large. I'd love for each of you to just talk to us a little bit about the emotional weight that this process has had on you, notwithstanding just applying, but also, again, as I mentioned, these constructs around racism and bias and negative perceptions that exist for Black and Brown communities.
So if I can continue, especially the stress, like that is that. I'm gonna see if I can get my light to turn on here in a second. But in particular, the stress, right? So I came into entrepreneurship like later in life, what I would consider to be later in life, right? I wasn't, it wasn't something that I set out to do as an undergrad. I think like most minorities, my only focus as an undergrad was to get out and get a job. Like entrepreneurship never entered my mind. And it was only until, I was working for NASA at the time. And, I've been working there for years. And I mean, it was a great job, but I remember thinking this is somebody else's dream job, right? And so, but it's not mine. And eventually I got the courage to leave my government job. I ended up in academia. By this time, I'm a parent with 2 kids. And the stress comes in that I have a product that I really believe in, and I'm inputting my money, to help develop this. But I believed in it so much until I literally took pay cuts, right? I changed jobs. I went back to being a postdoc, because that gave me the time that I needed to help develop the product and help develop the company. Now that is some scary stuff, right? When you have two people who are depending on you, and you have a product that you really believe in, and you, I mean, with reason, the data says, you know, because I went through NSFI core, right? The data says, hey, this is needed. The market wants this. So it's been validated. But the entire time, other than you're watching your own funds sort of dwindle, and you're relying on some people on the other end who are reviewing your application to sort of toss you a lifeline, right? And in this case, the way that I feel about my technology is it's not just a lifeline for my company, it's a lifeline for the people who are going to take advantage of the technology, right? Who will be able to use the technology. And so that is truly stressful. You submit, you wait for, you know, 6-7 months to get some sort of feedback. And then usually it's the feedback, at least for us, it seemed like it came from people who were not, I don't want to say qualified, but for lack of, they were not knowledgeable on the particular topic. And so their feedback in a lot of cases wasn't even relevant, right? To what we were doing. And so that is very stressful when you're waiting on that financial lifeline to come in and have it evaluated by people who don't understand the technology space.
Yeah. Would anyone else like to weigh in on that, on the emotional toll that it takes on you as an entrepreneur and a founder?
I think Dr. Polk, you may be trying to speak.
Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry. I got to get used to this toggle thing out here. I would love to jump in. April, I feel your pain. Everything you said, I checked off on my box because I went through those same things. But one thing I would add is that I felt demoralized because of the fact that I had a product that I knew that the population needed. Evidence talks about it in terms of what is needed for next steps, because I was actually working in dementia care and I was trying to develop a actual app, and it was community focused. So I would say that my issue was that I felt like I let the end user down, right? Because the product never got out to the community, and I just didn't feel like I had nowhere to go, because when I went to go talk to the program manager, tried to get more feedback, I just think culturally, because it was focused on people of color that have caregiving needs, he couldn't really, give me the information to be able to elevate me and my spirit, as well as point me in the right direction to talk to others. So I just felt like at the end things went awry, and I felt it was, kind of just amounted to a dismal. But I regained confidence and came back and did another iteration. But nevertheless, I feel your pain, and that, I definitely had a lot of barriers similar to yours.
One thing, if I can add really fast to that, is I totally agree with what everyone has said too. But then one thing to add is I think, even from my perspective, not understanding that failure is normal, and like kind of normalizing the learnings from those failures, where in some sense, like everyone's kind of, at least in my community or growing up with my friends or my parents or something like that, they're looking at you and saying, hey, this is so crazy, just go out and get a job. Like, we put all this like time, effort for you to get this degree. Why are you wasting it on doing something that you don't even know that will work? And so, figuring out ways to like kind of understand, well, within the emotional support of, hey, failure and the learnings from that is totally normal and okay. And how can we learn from that to improve? It's totally a dynamic, and in my opinion, a cultural change where, it becomes to be normal, where you begin to say, hey, that's okay to fail. You learn from it and get back on your feet and try again, versus, hey, I told you so. See, go back and get a job. Don't waste your time pursuing this. So
I think there's also an opportunity here. There's an opportunity to try and access individuals that have successfully secured an SBIR and learn from them as to what it took to get it, but take it a step further and even have a resource in which you can share the application, so that people can actually see what it took. But one of the things that was super helpful at some point, I don't remember, I think it was after the I-Corps, I don't think it was after the phase 1, but was actually to get the opportunity to serve in one of the review panels, so that you actually get exposure to some of those conversations that happen behind doors, so that it provides an additional tool to shape the application to what some panels are looking for, and that can potentially help augment some of the challenges that have been described by the other panelists.
I guess I'll add this one, last little piece to this, and it's that, so it's great that we got awarded, right? But look at what we did to be awarded. We had a strategic partnership, which means we gave up equity, right? And so on one hand, that's not a problem, because my co-founder and I, we knew that by this time I was extremely afraid of sort of hopping out there again with the 2 kids involved, because I'd hopped out there before and taken pay cuts, and now I would be hopping out there again, sort of depending on grants to support my salary. So we knew that we were not going to be able to take the technology to market ourselves. So we had to partner with someone, and we had to give up equity, which is fine, but we had to partner with someone, and we had to give up equity in order to get the funding that we got, and something about that just seems a little bit, just a little bit unfair. But, I guess from our standpoint, it was like, just say 10% of 100 is more than, 0% of, nothing, right? So, or 100% of nothing. So that partnership, I think, was necessary, but in order for us to move forward, but I'm just not convinced that it should have had to be necessary.
So I appreciate the, your personal perspectives and your willingness to share that. I think it's important in the context of this discussion to really talk about how difficult it is for entrepreneurs to, as you said, to sort of give up, right? You're working so hard. You believe in the innovation, and you believe in its ability to be successful in your respective communities, but there are lots of personal barriers, right? And obstacles that you have to overcome as you are working to not only make a life and make contributions in your environment, your ecosystem, and in the larger world, but also as you're looking to really try to hone in your skills as an entrepreneur, right? So again, I really do appreciate you all for sharing that. And this actually leads to a question from the audience about partners and the need for partners. And the question is about how you actually find partners, right? So thinking about perhaps not wanting to give up that equity, but when you're at the stage where you recognize that, as you pointed out, April, it's better than having nothing. Like, where do you go to actually find partners? And that's open to anyone. Paulo, why don't you start us off?
Sure. Happy to. I agree with Dr. Lovelady in her comments, and giving up equity early on is not ideal. I certainly agree with that. For us, one of the things that was really helpful was the I-Corps. The I-Corps, in which we met, over 80 different individuals, and discussed potential just ideas. We leverage some of those interviewees to provide letters of support. Maybe a strategy, just to provide some additional advice to the audience, was to lower the lift that the partner had to do in terms of providing that letter of support. So non-committal letter of support, if that's what you're able to secure. Maybe providing a initial sketch or draft that they could edit freely, and that those types of strategies were helpful for us. and they strengthen the application because the panel wants to see, are there letters of support versus no letters of support, and hitting the categories will be important for the reviewers as well. So leveraging those that we met during the I-Corps was a great first step.
Yeah,
Dr. Polk.
Oh,
sorry.
I was going to ask Weston, in your experience directly related to an instructor in the I-Corps program, if you could kind of weigh in on Dr. Garcia's comments.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would say in I-Corps in some sense is kind of the great equalizer in some case, where you get a chance to get out of your local ecosystem, or whether it's good or bad, but you get a chance to really expand your network, and actually even getting money to expand your network beyond kind of your realm of influence. And so I think could not endorse the I-Corps program more. Definitely. And the other factor too, to also add into this, I mean, especially with my background, a lot of these projects that are going in for SBIR funding are almost like too early stage to bring on venture capital funding. That was a big learning that we had. I never would have guessed that going in before we did I-Corps. And so I-Corps essentially was the great equalizer. That's how I heard about SBIR, and that's how I heard how a lot of people hear about these programs for the very first time, and it really opens up doors that they never thought were even there. So, so from an instructor standpoint, I see it as a great equalizer that no matter where you're geographically located, especially on the virtual format, it really helps to kind of level the playing field where you kind of get resources from all over the country. So.
Yeah, and I would love to transition again in relation to I-Corps. So the I-Corps program provides those really fundamental resources, as you mentioned, for in many cases, the entrepreneurs or the innovations are early stage. For those that find themselves ready to actually apply for SBIRs, looking more specifically to the findings that Dr. Warner presented and your own experiences, can one of you or all of you sort of share with us about the grant writing process? And I'll add on to that, how transparent the SBIR process is from your perspectives, right? So as you're in the process of preparing, the transparency, and then also maybe talk a little bit about the transparency around the grant writing process and your need to have really good grant writing resources to apply. And I'll open it up to everyone.
Yeah, I can start, and I would say it's absolutely critical. So it's kind of embarrassing to say this, but you start to mess with the different font sizes, or you're like, no, don't do that. Do not change just to exactly what the fonts that they want. It's not an opportunity to be creative there. And even down to really specifically addressing, like very specifically what they want to hear. At least for me in particular, I had absolutely zero experience writing any kind of NSF grants or federal funding grants or anything like that. And so it's really important because there's a specific kind of style, and it also kind of depends on the solicitation that you're reading as well, and understanding, and even the agency to understand exactly with what they're looking for. And so knowing that, hey, it's a great idea to reach out to your program officer before you apply, or it's a great idea to attend an SBIR roadshow, or to hear into these conversations, or to see if there's even a fit. That's really critical, and I would say almost even make or breaks teams to get funded.
Dr. Polk, I know you have experience with some of the challenges that you encountered as you were preparing. Can you talk to us a little bit about your experiences related to sort of transparency and the grant writing process?
Okay, yeah. So the grant writing process, we had an excellent grant writer, but once again, that's not what I would say was almost unconventional to what SBIR was looking for in terms of title, and that person didn't have the credentials that they wanted to see. That's what I think, but because they were within our application, but nevertheless, far as transparency, I don't think the process lagged so long that transparency wasn't even relevant. Because by the time I got the answer, I waited for the outcome. I had already done pivot to something else because it takes too long. So And then also the communication can be a little convoluted, right? You know, especially if you don't know the jargon, right? So I had to really take the letters of that were sent at the end of the submittal process, like 7 months later, and had 2 other people translate it for me, and I got a whole PhD. So this was like, okay, this so this process is a little hard to really like sink in and get just navigate. So but just me being an underrepresented Black woman, business, having a minority business, and being 50 plus, you know, all those particular factors. When I approach individuals like to potentially maybe partner with, one of those factors someone doesn't like. So I wanted to be able to get more buy-in from people and organizations to kind of help elevate this work, because it's needed work. It's actually the critical pieces to creating dementia-friendly communities, which Black people are the highest in terms of disproportionately affected by it, right? So looking at those kind of things and saying, okay, well, I have something, and not being able to have someone to help you, you know, be the underdog and be able to take it to SPR was kind of disappointing. But as I think I told you, I was a part of a initiative through NIH. They had hired a consulting group, I think it was called Evelyn or Eva Garland, and they put us through a 10-week series to help us prepare the actual grant, as well as look at the different elements of it. The unfortunate process with some of those type of organizations, I couldn't get their success rate. So I'm telling you, okay, if y'all help 30 people, how many people secured a grant, you know, who went through this process? So that, you know, so being just real transparent, that was one of my issues. And also the inability to have someone like me to go back, you know, and have conversations about, am I really feeling what I'm feeling? And am I seeing what I'm seeing in terms of the inequity around companies like myself being a Black and brown founder, you know? So I hope that answers your question.
It does. And I'd like to invite Dr. Lovelady for you to add any additional insights for this particular discussion before we move to the next question.
So I think that the one thing that I would add to that is when you do sort of receive your comments back, make sure that you compare them to the actual application and what it was asking for, right? So again, sorry, I'll turn my light on again. But you compare it to what the actual application was asking for, which, you know, and Dr. Polk's, you know, add to that, sometimes that can be difficult when you're looking at that jargon, right? But I think it's important when you compare it to the actual application criteria. Again, I think that was one of the things that helped us win that 4th time around, because we were being scored on phase 2 criteria when we were submitting phase 1 SBIRs, right? And so you have to be aware of the terminology and the criteria. And in terms of the transparency of the grant writing, that is a big part of it, knowing what your requirements are, knowing what the criteria is that you're trying to meet. We had, so I am a faculty member here at Prairie View A&M University, and we had a really, really wonderful grant writer on staff at one point in time. And so it was awesome to be able to run things by her. And in fact, she since, you know, left Prairie View, and she has her own grant writing company that she runs now, right? So she's really, really good. She has a really high success rate. But had it not been for her as well, you know, helping me to understand what the criteria is, and, you know, how to reword some of those things, I think it would have been an even tougher uphill battle that we had to fight.
And this highlights another point that I think I saw in the chat around the distinction between academic and non-academic, right? And so resources that are available to academics within university ecosystems are very different than those that are related to the non-academic sort of community. So if you can, and if you're able, I know Dr. Polk has some familiarity with this through our work together. But if each of you could sort of talk about how you provide support for non-academic entrepreneurs that are looking for resources as they're also trying to navigate the SBIR process?
So I can, oh, go ahead, Paulo, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Dr. Lovelady.
Thank you. We have an interesting thing happening here at Prairie View right now, and that is our PV alum will come back to the mechanical engineering department where I work, and they ask us if we can build their prototypes for them, right? So they've gone off and they've invented something and they've got IP, and so but they want us to build their prototypes, right? So they'll come here, but it ends up being more than that, right? So a lot of them have not heard of SBIR, and then when you sort of tell them about SBIR, and you can give them the application all day long, but they come right back because what they really want is for you to write it for them.
Right.
Right. And that's because they don't understand like how much work goes into it. So I find myself, I have five such cases right now. And I don't get, as I'm traveling along this tenure track road, it's not like I get any type of compensation or even acknowledgement for doing this, but I think that it's important, and I know what it feels like to be those people on the other end. So I'm more than happy to share the knowledge that I have with them, but it takes time out of my academic day to do so, right? So that can be very difficult, and I'm not sure. I remember I tried SCORE. I lived in Kansas for a while, so I tried SCORE to see if that could help. And it honestly, maybe it was just where I was, but it wasn't very helpful. And so to someone from the community who has this idea, they've put in the work, they have the patent, but they're just now learning about the SBIR process, it can be very daunting. And they're coming to an academic institution to help, but the academic institution does not have the resources or the time to do so. We actually have, in the past couple of years at Prairie View, a technology transfer office. And so what I've noticed is they come to me first. I don't even know how they found out about me. There must be a billboard somewhere like my name on it that's like, call her, right? So they come here, and I'll do what I can, but I'm honest. I'm like, hey, I really don't have time. Like, here's our technology transfer office. But if I'm not careful, what will happen is they'll be bounced back and forth between our technology and here. And these people are very, very frustrated. So I think that, if there's some sort of economic development unit that could have grant writers on staff or something like that, then that would be very helpful to people of the community who have inventions.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Weston?
Yeah, I think a big thing, so we do get a lot of community that reach out, and truthfully, some of them, maybe it feels like it's not a good fit. So I love that NSF now has the project pitch component of it. But the other aspect of this as well is, just because maybe they don't talk the best, or they don't have whatever that you think kind of fits the bias or the mold that could win. I think a big part of this is being willing to inconvenience your schedule to help them, no matter where their starting point is. I think that's really, really critical, because someone helped us. Someone helped us to get to where we're at today, and I think I definitely feel a sense of burden to give back, and to really help someone else along the journey as well. And so I know it's not really specifically answering the question about what resource or something too, but in my opinion, I think it's like an attitude change, or at least from myself speaking, mostly of, hey, it doesn't matter if they're kind of rigid or rugged around the edges, but if they want to do this, meet them where they're at today and try to help with wherever the gaps are, and don't give up on them, if they're willing to try hard and work hard. So.
Yeah, I actually appreciate that, sort of the concept of meeting people where they are, right? And as Dr. Lovelady mentioned, in many cases, if they are sort of community-based entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are not academics, they're also encountering some of the same barriers and challenges that you all encountered, right? And so granting grace is one of the things that I think is also important to elevate, as we all are trying to figure out how best to be in service to not only non-academic entrepreneurs, but academic entrepreneurs alike. And so I'd love to transition, one more time to this concept of the importance of community, right? You touched on this, Weston, but thoughts on, as you all are learning the process, applying, winning SBIRs, Dr. Garcia mentioned, sharing out those insights, having the ability to actually look at an application before you apply. How important is it for not only you as representatives of the SBIR community, but the community at large, entrepreneur organizations, support organizations, et cetera? How important is that community aspect? I can make the assumption that it's essential, but would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll start and, well.
So is that for anybody?
Yeah, sure.
That's
just open. Yep.
Okay. I definitely, okay. Oh, okay. So I think community, I guess because I'm a community developer, and I believe community engagement is essential into whatever type of solution that you're trying to build, and to have them as a partner in that process. So I think I shared with you before that I don't do projects that I don't incorporate the community in, right? Because I need them for the heavy lifting. I need them for so many aspects in the development of the innovation that they're an intricate part of the process. And I think like the question that I hate to go back, but I'm gonna have to go back just a minute. But because of the fact that I look at it from the perspective that I know I see so many community innovators, future entrepreneurs that have solutions and do not know how to go through the process. And by incorporating them into my community efforts, helps them learn the process as well. I just really believe in the process of teaching, meeting people where they're at and teaching them. And if I don't have the resource or have the capacity, making sure I do a soft handoff to an organization that does. I think that's vital in terms of being able to help people grow into this particular process. But going back to community, I think in terms of when you're like I said, I work with the community. If you don't have that buy-in, then I don't know how successful your solutions will be.
Yeah, great point. Buy-in is key.
And I'll build on that. And I also believe that community is essential in order to succeed, not only in the projects that we're talking about, but in continuing to provide equitable access to many more individuals in our society. And from that perspective, and specifically thinking from an entrepreneurial type of ecosystem, I am, very provided at helping that industry continue to grow. And when people approach me because of our track record in the SBIR, some of the things that I do is I actually do share confidentially our grant. And I also have a list of 10 strengths and 10 weaknesses that I've received back in the day when I was a panelist for SBIR that I think it would be really useful to be distributed to the attendees of this panel, because it just provides even just a check mark. These are the 10 things that you should try to include to increase the chances. It's not a guarantee, but these are things that I share with individuals as we are, as they're putting together their applications, because that's how we win. That's how we continue this very, very special movement of building companies and taking technologies into having a global impact. And that is really where I'd like us to continue putting the effort in and providing equitable access. I like that.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think the other layer to this, along with the equitable access, is to the earlier question from the audience about transparency, right? And I think you're touching on that it's not just that when you win an SBIR, that you hold that information for yourself, but that these processes, these discussions, this panel today, right? This summit is really about exposing the challenges and the difficulties, but also coming up with solutions, right? Equitable solutions that really elevate all of us to engage in and have opportunities for success, right? And so I think that, these types of conversations are essential and they're critical. And I love the idea of sharing out the lessons learned, not only from your individual stories, but also from this collective with everyone, right? So that we all are able to benefit from it. And so we have a couple more minutes for questions. And so I'd love to open it up to you, Weston or April, if you have any additional thoughts about that community piece and also about that equitable sharing of resources.
I can chime in and I'll pass it over to April after this. I think for me, the word community, it really helps to kind of accelerate that gap between where you're at today and where you hope to grow to. And so like everyone has kind of said, that common theme of community is extremely essential. But in some sense, there is a level where you start off maybe behind of where the community is, but then you eventually grow up to be at that stage, and it's fun to get to see how you get to give back. And so I know we kind of had this in common where, being on all sides or seeing a lot of the different angles of it, it's really cool to see where I'm at today and the vantage point that I have versus when I started. It's really exciting to get to help navigate entrepreneurs to avoid the mistakes that I made and essentially to get to where I'm at, or to get to this success, or however that they define success, or whatever their goal is, faster than maybe what it had taken me to maybe avoid mistakes like that. And so I think that's the fun thing about community, and just being intentional about building community. And ultimately, I also want to highlight too, where it takes a lot of courage to come up here and to like present these results and to say these things. And it takes a community to know that there's safety to be able to speak honestly, where it's not going to result in something bad happening or something like that. Where anyway, so those are my 2 cents that I wanted to add, and I think everyone's made extremely great points.
Yeah.
I like what's that you mentioned being intentional. So one of the things that I met with our tech transfer office about last week was being able to intentionally help the community people who come to us. And so what we're working on now is putting together like a cheat sheet for them, right? So these are the things that you want to have in place before you can apply for an SBIR that's going to make you, make your application stronger. And I, have definitely benefited from community. So at one point in time, I was outside of the entrepreneur community that I'm now part of.
Right.
And there were people who reached out to me and continued to serve as mentors. And, Wes, Terry, like Terry Chase, who's constantly grooming me. And, she's not afraid to tell me I'm wrong or I need to fix this. But at the same time, I'm also open to her instruction as well, right? But at some point in time, I think we were all outside of the communities that we're now part of. We all know what that feels like, that feeling of being lost and not really knowing what the next move is. And I think that it's incumbent upon us, those of us who now have that knowledge, to reach back and share that with our community.
Absolutely. All right, so we're approaching the last couple of minutes of our panel, and I have just 2 final questions. One, kind of circling back to the concept of, all of these terms and concepts and different expectations as you're applying. If you could sort of share, to your point, Dr. Garcia, what resources, is there sort of a glossary of terms or documents? I think you just mentioned this, Dr. Lovelady, as well. Where do you all go for those resources?
I go to you.
I mean, outside of me.
So no. So, but no, in all seriousness, so back from the beginning of this conversation, being as though I had limited access and knowledge of this particular process, and had no social capital in the game, and the people that I was looking for the information from, like I said, the local business development office, they didn't really have any people to connect me with. So what I had to do was go out and build a network by trial and error, connecting with other universities. Like I wound up applying for a small grant through Johns Hopkins to maybe do one portion of my research that actually was within their scope. So that was very helpful. And then, so I just kind of pieced okay, like my grandma used to do piecework. So to be able to make to be able to do everything I wanted to do in terms of making connections and things like that. So, and as I started to, garner all that information, then I also, like Dr. April did, pulled it together as a actual how-to and who to connect with for special items or what have you. So so I had to build everything from scratch, and I didn't know about an I-Core. I learned about I-Core literally last year.
Yeah.
So I think access and awareness is key. So everything I do, I make sure that I'm teaching or showing someone else.
Yeah.
Back to that social capital piece.
Yeah, building the network yourself, leveraging your own individual resources, but then when you secure those resources, then of course sharing that out to your broader networks, and going back to our discussion about community, making sure that not only the academic communities, but also the non-academic communities are aware and can also benefit from them. So thank you for that. All right, in the last couple of minutes, I'm really interested in hearing from each of you what advice you would give to other entrepreneurs who are in similar situations. They are either academic, non-academic, but are interested in perhaps, based on this discussion, looking to SBIR as a source of funding for their innovations and their ventures. If each of you could take a couple minutes just to kind of talk about, maybe 1 or 2 minutes about your thoughts there. So what advice would you give before we close? And we'll start with Dr. Garcia.
Great, thank you. First of all, thank you also for putting together this panel, because it helps expose what are some of the areas that are available to some extent to the entrepreneurs out there. And in terms of some of the key lessons, I think the first one is the process is quite involved, and that was one of the key things that I told Grant in our pre-meet. And so that means you really have to start early in terms of, if you don't have the registrations for the company, for example, start that early. And if I had to do it all over again, I would engage with additional individuals that have been successful at accomplishing some of these awards. What I will mention is that there could be additional opportunities outside of the SBIR, and I encourage people to try to participate on those. And those could be, pitch competitions or areas in which, even if you do not win, and even if you don't win, it helps you organize your ideas and start receiving some of the feedback in a less involved setting, and you can take those learnings and put them into your application. You could mention, lessons learned at this pitch competition, and start building a case, because that helps connect your application to a real world setting. So start early, and there's additional opportunities that can help you inform what to put in your SBIR application, which is a more involved process.
Right. And then let's just do one other comment, and then we're going to close in the interest of time.
I could go really fast. Or Dr. Polk, did you want to go?
No, I'm going to go ahead. I defer to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be really quick. I know one thing, I just really impressed with all the people sharing their LinkedIn information. There was a lot of really powerful people on this call right now. Connect with them. So if I was an attendee in this crowd looking to hear advice that I'd speak to myself, I would try to connect with as many people as possible that are in this group, because they've raised the flag that they want to help, and take them up on their offer. So that's to be brief, that's the advice I would give.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for, again, your transparency and your willingness to participate in this panel discussion today. It's been an honor and a pleasure getting to know each of you individually. So thank you again.